All right. Good morning, even afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Versus Live, where we talk all things poetry, professional poetry development. My name is Jeff.
And I am regressing Jeff. I'm like what Jeff would be if he would just kind of took a step back
Yeah,
and just didn't
especially like the hairline.
didn't he, yeah if he just didn't even actually that's maybe if he cared too much that's what happened that's right. He has a hat now. Jeff has a hat.
We have merch. Oh my
we have
gosh,
merch.
there's merch. Oh my god.
So if you want a hat, sometimes you're like, oh my god, the sun is so hot, what am I gonna do? And then you can just
I never hot anymore. It's true because I wear a hat.
You used to just catch fire just randomly throughout the day, and now it's
just everything underneath. But the head is cool. The head is cool. But we will get into that and more. We're not going to get into that more. We have a very, very, very important topic today. So we are going to be approaching once more writing from a business perspective, how to start actually approaching your writing and even your poetry. Oh my gosh. In a way that is actually going to sustain you. Oh my gosh. Can you believe that?
I'm really excited because we already got a couple things in the works as far as just talking to poets and talking to artists about things that are happening in the poetry world and ways to kind of get your work out there and get paid. And I'm just glad that we're able to fold in upon that with some more goodies today.
So let's get right into it. We actually have a very special guest today. Yes, this is breaking. Her name is Britt. You may be familiar with her. On all kinds of things. Welcome, Britt.
Welcome, Britt.
Hey.
Thank you for joining us today.
No problem.
Great. Britt, can you just give us like the rapid fire 10-second intro? Who are you? What do you do? And how are you going to help us?
My name is Britt. Once again, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a founder of No Mud, No Lotus branding agency. And I'm also a content creator. I love the gym. And what I'm going to do is light this show up.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right.
How did you come up with the name like No Mud, No Lotus?
I'm a fan of Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he had a book called No Mud, No Lotus, and I read it in college, and I kind of fell in love with the meaning behind it, and here we are.
Nice.
You stole the name from his book.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Pretty much.
Well, no, I appreciate that. It's a good name. I appreciate that. I don't appreciate the Lakers colors. She does a lot of like purple and gold.
Yeah, well,
that's
you'll get on the bandwagon
when
when they win another championship. Yeah, because the process is working so well for you guys. Is James Harden there or no? Is he gone?
We don't know. He doesn't know. No one knows. But we're here, so that's the important thing. Britt, you mentioned to me that you have 3 strategies that we can start using if we wanted to start taking our writing in approaching it from a business perspective. Can you walk us through what your first suggestion would be?
So my first suggestion would be to, like, groundbreaking number 1 foundation would be to identify your niche. So this is like your target audience, who you're trying to reach, who your ideal audience base is, basically. So identify basically who you're trying to talk to, who you want your message to get across to.
Okay. So like, for instance, if a poet came to you and they're like, hey, No Mud, No Lotus, I want you to help me find my niche. How do you think you could guide a writer into using that sort of framework moving forward?
That's a good question. I kind of would I guess, go by their interests, like who they constantly engage with on their social medias and who they're pretty much, I guess, interested in, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you think that, like, for instance, when you think of niches, can you give an example? Like, is there any person or is there any writer, or even just like from a business perspective, just like in case someone hasn't heard of a niche before, they haven't gone through that strategy, can you walk us through like some example niches just to kind of give us some models that we can be like, oh, I get the idea now, I can start thinking about that for my own writing?
Yeah, so there's like the fitness world, the book world, as you guys know, literature world as a niche. Graphic design has its own niche. It's a very well-known niche. Basically, like, just like a group of common interests. Like that's kind of how I would describe it.
Mhm.
Do you encourage, or I guess would you encourage people to go as, I guess, specific as possible with their niche, or like, how far, how deep would the resolution be? If they're like, okay, I'm a car guy, I really like cars. Okay, but okay, maybe your niche might be this specific type of car that you might like, and then maybe that specific niche might be like the year of the car. Like, would you encourage somebody kind of going a little bit more surface level with their niche, or would you encourage them going as specific as possible?
I feel like if you go specific as possible, you're kind of limiting yourself. Like
Okay.
I would kind of keep it like general, so you'll have like a big enough audience to pull from. Because like I said, if you go specific as possible, you're only going to have like a very select group to talk to, and you want to kind of stretch your reach as wide as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's tricky a lot with poetry. I do a lot of that kind of just probing questions. So Brett, again, I found on Threads, and so I like to do a lot of just probing questions, just kind of see where different writers are at, how they're handling their writing. And some of the questions I like to ask is like, hey, like, who's your book for? Who's your book not for? And it's interesting hearing people's answers, because like you'll get people's answers like, oh, my book is not for like people in favor of the Spanish Inquisition. It's like, wait, what? Or like, my book is not for people who don't like fun. And I find those really interesting answers, because to me that kind of suggests that you have a writer who maybe hasn't even ever thought about who their book is actually for. Like, hey, I wrote the thing. That's all that matters. Like, what are some ways do you think that writers can start thinking about niche a little bit more? Because I think a lot of people put the art on the pedestal. They're like, hey, this is my art, this is my work. I'm not really thinking about audience. And then the book comes out and it's like, oh, now I'm thinking about audience, or my publisher is thinking about audience. Like, how can we guide writers to start considering that topic sooner?
Right. And just to add on to the question, because I think another level to what you're talking about is also, I think a lot of artists believe that their art is just for everybody. For if you like poetry, then you'll love my poetry book, right? And I think that that's one of the other things that there might, and I don't want to say it's necessarily pride. It's just that because you think, you're thinking in poems, you're thinking, about writing your work this entire time, so you're not necessarily thinking that there's a large contingency of people out there that are not going to really vibe with your work as much, or aren't gonna, or that you probably shouldn't spend a lot of your time and effort trying to cater to, just because the chances of them being interested in your work is not as high as maybe somebody else who you could be a lot more specific with.
I don't know. I kind of ran into that similar problem when I was trying to get my own story published, because I was writing, in my mind, I was writing for everybody that would, give my story a chance to be read. But when you're pitching your stories to these publishing companies, they're looking for a specific audience. They want to know, like, okay, but who are you talking to? This book is not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to like your story. So then you got to think about, okay, so who was I really talking to in this story? Like, who was the main group that was featured, And you narrow it down from there. Like, that's kind of how you find out what your niche is basically just kind of like seeing who you actually were talking to when you were writing that story. Because you, like I said, you weren't talking to everybody. You can't talk to everybody. Everybody's different.
So do you actually have a book out right now?
I'm still trying to get it published.
What's been that process like?
It's been a whole bunch of no's, which means I'm getting somewhere. So
how are you? So speaking of niche, I mean, I think from a publishing standpoint, this is also really important. A lot of people are sending out work. How do you determine like if a publication is the right fit? It's the same kind of idea. Like, so for instance, for your own, we can even kind of specify it towards your own book. Like, what are you looking for in a publisher?
I'm looking for publishers that are interested in publishing people with underrepresented voices in the media, and also people with a queer background. Not like, I'm queer, but basically they focus on queer stories. So basically, everybody that's underrepresented is the publisher that I would love to go for is somebody that kind of focuses on that.
Like when I think is that something you took into consideration when you were creating, or is that something that you, after you were kind of the work was completed, then at that point you kind of had a kind of clear directionality to your focus?
It was after the fact. When I was writing, I kind of turn my brain off when I write. It kind of just happens.
That's my problem too.
Yeah.
But then my stuff is not as good, so we'll just. That's fair.
But yeah,
I mean, I think
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that even that is already starting to identify a niche to be like, okay, so my book's not for everybody. Now I'm targeting underrepresented voices or different types of like sexuality and things like that. Even just that is like, oh, like people have to say this book is not for me, and people also have to say this book is for me. Like I think I understand. Like it sounds like when you were writing, it sounds like you're writing the thing, and I get that when you're writing a thing, you're writing the thing. But then being able to take that step back to be like, okay, what am I doing in this piece or in this collection, and who would this appeal to the most? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other thoughts that you want to mention just about publishing or niches related to publishing and things like that?
No.
Okay. And of course, for everyone else, if you're watching this, let us know your own experiences. What is your own niche for your work? Have you asked yourself some questions? What are some questions? And I think they even just kind of rapid fire. Something I think would be helpful for people as they're trying to find their niche is I kind of just want to take a moment to kind of decide what are some questions that you can ask yourself to help you find what your niche actually is. Because I think sometimes we haven't done that sort of exploration.
Yeah.
Like, so I think a couple questions I have, then I'll turn it over to you guys. Some questions that I would ask if I were trying to find a niche for a collection of mine is I would ask, what are some central themes that exist in my work? I would also be asking myself, if I could only talk to one group of people about this work, who would I talk to? A personal experience. So for instance, a lot of my work right now revolves around my son. So I got a lot of dad poems. So shout out to Tatum. Come on.
Yeah, man, you're out there.
Little man. Come on.
Gotta give him
the basketball was coming. We told you. So, I'm probably not going to be reaching out my collection to like college kids. So I think that's another thing too, is like also asking yourself, who is your book not for? So sometimes asking yourself who your book is for is harder. So sometimes it's like, okay, let me make a list of all the people my book is not for. Okay, so it's not for kids. It's not for teenagers. It's not for college students. It's not for, single elderly people who've never had kids before. And I think another thing to also realize about niches is that just because your book is not for someone doesn't mean they can't get enjoyment from it.
Yeah.
It just means we're not targeting them, but your circles can get wider. And I think sometimes people forget that, or they're afraid of that.
I think, to even bring that down a little bit more, even after you're finished writing a poem, and this is gonna, at the point that we're talking about now, we're talking about where you already have a collection. But I think when you bring it to the level of individual poems, I think that process could help as well. Because I think what a lot of poets do is that in order for them to hit as many targets as possible, they'll infuse their poem with as many subject matter, like pieces of subject matter as possible. You can kind of always tell, because at the end of it, it's like, if you ask them like, okay, what was the poem about? They can give probably 5 or 6 solid answers because they focus on 5 or 6 things. And so, I think bringing that focus that you would have at the collection level and bringing that down to the individual poem, or even just individual selection, like if you have like a run of 3 poems that you feel work in concert with each other, just really trying to figure out if those poems actually have the kind of focus and directionality that you would really want them to have. And then I think that will really enable you to, or like really, really enable you to then be able to put together a collection that has a much stronger focus than, okay, well, I can't really decide which direction these poems are going, because you have considered that in the writing process.
Final thoughts? Anything that you wanted to add there, Britt?
That was well said.
Wait, so Jeff, what would you consider your niche to be? We're gonna critique Jeff's niche. Let's figure this out.
Okay.
But I was actually I literally just talked about that. I forget who I was talking to this about. So thinking about my own poetry. So a couple of things that I'm doing with my writing. So one, typically, and when we take a look at the prompts, because we sent out a prompt, people sent some responses into. So typically with my poetry, one thing, I'm not using punctuation a lot. I have line breaks that are slightly unusual. So I'm imagining that my ideal audience that I have in mind is already experienced with poetry, and also probably experienced a bit with academic style poetry, but also having some kind of like street knowledge to a degree, because sometimes I'm throwing in like some slang and things like that. So it's like we're trying to hit all the bases here.
We just scared Jeff straight. He was in the streets before he started this podcast.
Wilding out in Philly.
I said, no, Jeff, you have to get your life right. And then that's when he got the house.
Yeah.
Married Kathy. We have Tatum.
Yeah.
Well, and I just like to thank myself for kind of just pushing Jeff in that direction. Yeah. Well, don't boo me. Why would you do that to your mentor, Jeff?
So going back, so that's the first thing. So I'm expecting someone who already has some experience with poetry, has written poetry, has read poetry, some academic knowledge, but also some, ability to understand slang and things like that, vernacular. I would also say, again, like I said, I'm talking a lot about my son. So a lot people looking for like family type poems. I would also say sometimes, things related to like race, ethnicity, multiracial backgrounds and things like that. I would also say the work leans definitely more confessional. I mean, right now that's a big thing, just poetry in the US in general, but confessional style, more narrative with touches of lyric. I don't go heavy lyric, like I'm not too experimental, so someone's looking for the more experimental stuff. In general, my pieces aren't doing that. And other things I would say, and again, trying to just give examples of niches, and these are things I want you to begin thinking about for your own work as well.
I think what's interesting is that like the confessional, before I even asked you the question, when I knew I was going to ask you the question, the first thing I was like thinking like Jeff's niche is like this confessional style, as you're going through these newer experiences, primarily like I would like kind of grounded in like fatherhood. So as you're going through these experiences in fatherhood, like these like kind of confessional pieces where you're kind of giving your perspective on where you are, and like kind of really I want to say hyperfixating is not the word, but it is in a way on like a couple different things, like where you're hyperfixating on certain topics, which I think is really cool. So
so hopefully that just kind of gives people an idea of ways you can start categorizing your own work. It would be great, if people want to let us know, how would you categorize your own work? Like 2 sentences, 3 sentences, trying to be as specific as possible. And then you can get in touch with Britt, and she can help you find ways to find your niche and people that connect with that. I know we have talked a lot about this first point. If you guys have anything you want to go back to on niches, feel free to kind of cycle back, but I'm going to move Britt on. Britt, what is point number 2? What should people know?
Building a strong online presence. Engage.
What does that look like specifically?
So I'm just going to use Threads as an example, since Threads is the thing right now. So having a strong online presence revolves around you like always engaging in people's comments, always creating posts, being consistent with your posting, just kind of getting out there and showing your face and making sure that everybody can kind of see you.
Yeah. And real quick, as we're even talking about Threads, make sure is this your Threads handle, Suns underscore Suns Tirade? Make
Yep.
sure you're following Brit Suns Tirade. Follow Diverses, because you should be following Diverses too, right? If you're even watching this, right? But yeah, so I think that, like, yeah, what are we doing? What are we doing exactly? Stop doing other things if you're doing other things right now. That's what we're trying to say. But yeah, I mean, what I actually really like about what you just said, and I think Jeff a couple podcasts ago kind of brought this up as well. I think a lot of people engage with social media in an effort to really build their brand up, which in a lot of ways for them looks like, hey, I'm just going to keep posting until I get famous one day. And I think one of the things that the algorithm can really sense, maybe, and what I think that people sense to a degree, and what, I think it kind of leans it the other way, is that if you're only doing that, then you're not really participating enough with your niche, right? So if your niche is, I would even say like gym content. If you're only participating with gym content in as much as you're posting gym content, then people aren't seeing you engage enough with like other gym content, and they're not seeing you engage enough with like people that are like maybe curious about going to the gym, curious about what they're, and like I think that your presence in all those spaces really aids in building up your brand and kind of attracting people that are going to be interested in the same thing when it comes to your niches and like the writing framework. If you're really pushing yourself into those spaces, and you might see a group and these people are all talking about the same thing, well, yeah, make sure you're in that group, or be somewhat tangentially a part of that group as much as you can really participate. I think it'll really it really pushes you as a creator because of the fact that you're engaged so often in all these spaces.
Yeah.
Follow us on Threads. Do it.
Let's use Threads as an example here. So Britt, what's your strategy when it comes to Threads? How are you approaching it?
I pretty much just show up as much as I can when I can. I don't have a plan really. It's just kind of like I kind of have a lot of thoughts, and Threads is kind of like my soundboard. So that's kind of how I attack the app, so to speak.
That's how the Joker operates too. I really appreciate it.
No, it's interesting you say that. There's a big guy in business marketing, Alex Hermosi, and that's one of the things that he found with Twitter, especially, was because originally he was just kind of, he would have notebooks and he would write his ideas out on notebooks, but then he was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna start using Twitter for that. So like instead of writing ideas down notebooks, he would be thrown out in tweets. And then what happened? People started engaging with the tweets, and then the ones that people really started engaging with those, like, oh, this is touched on something, I need to make more content around this specific thing. So I really resonate with that idea of a soundboard, and I think that works really well with a text-based platform. It seems like in general Twitter's, I don't personally like Twitter or X, but it seems like if you have enough of a following, it's pretty forgiving. Like you post something, it doesn't do anything, cool, I'll post another thing, it goes bananas, so it seems really kind of forgiving in that sense. And I think that's one advantage of a thread of a text-based platform. Are there any things that you've noticed working particularly well on Threads, like text versus video, frequency? What are just some insights that you've noticed in your own experience?
I noticed Threads is very active in the morning, and that's kind of when all my posts take off. So another thing I've noticed is I've lost my train of thought. I love that.
When you say morning, by the way, you're talking East Coast, United States time?
Yeah, our time, okay. East Coast. Yeah. I want that thought to come back to me.
Gotcha. So just kind of reiterate, you mentioned that you feel time of day has been an important factor.
Yeah, time of day, and just pretty much, I think video doesn't do that well for me. People like to see my thoughts more, and people also like to see my fitness content.
Does Threads allow you, or because I know a couple other apps do, but does Threads allow you an option of like scheduling posts yet, or Is
No,
that not something that's not an option?
Don't believe it
on
does.
No.
I've not seen that.
I don't think I'd use it anyways.
I don't use it. So I think I used to use it for stuff like IG, and that was primarily because depending depending on the time of day, like if I just like work throughout the entirety of the day, so I might not always have time to like push something through. But I think for something like for any text-based app, like something like that, like your instantaneous thoughts are I think a lot more valued, just because I mean if I'm thinking about something like right now, it might not be incredibly relevant at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning or what have you. So most of what I'm thinking right at the moment is not relevant at 8 a.m. in the morning. So that's fair.
Or 10:07 p.m.
10:07. What you're doing right now, it should not be happening. Why can't we hear the buttons? I want to hear
there's a sound. Brit hears them. That's important.
I definitely hear it. I
You
definitely heard it.
definitely heard that. She Brit.
That's good.
She
Why?
can hear, but we can't hear that. But it's there.
That's fair. Are those headphones? Are they comfortable?
Yeah, I got some ear pads on them.
Oh, she fancy.
No,
Oh,
those
look
are,
at that. Oh, snap. Okay.
those are
Okay.
nice. Those are nice. So like this is like the studio setup that we should have over here, Jeff.
Headphones. What's wrong with one headphone in one ear? You don't like that?
I would love a microphone. So
These are props, okay? These are
Okay.
just to make us look official. This really just
It's
computer
working.
sound.
Yeah.
So, nice.
Actually, a very, very quick podcast in case anyone's speaking of like social media content, creating content, getting things out there. If you're interested in things like getting your own video or getting your own voice out there, and you're like, I need to make an investment, probably the very first investment I would recommend is audio, because people will tolerate choppy video if the audio is good. Like if I talk like that the entire time, no one watching this. Ain't no one watching this. So definitely first investment. It doesn't even have to be an expensive mic, like a $20 mic. Oftentimes it's better than one that's on your phone. I think it's interesting. You mentioned niche. You mentioned that for threads, it seems like, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like the content on your threads account is based again, kind of like again, there's the entrepreneurship angle, but then there's also that fitness angle. So it's almost kind of like personal development, business development, kind of in a sense. Do you feel like moving forward, how much do you see your account focusing on both of those versus making a decision, be like, you know what, I'm going to switch over to more fitness, or I'm going to switch over to more entrepreneurship? What's kind of your future stance on that?
it's kind of basically what takes off first. I'm doing an experiment to kind of see like what topic will take off, whether it be the entrepreneurship or the fitness or the personal development, whichever one lands is what I'm going to focus on more. But I always kind of want to be a multi-niche person because I don't like being in one box. Like I like to have my hands in a lot of boxes. So that's kind of my niche.
Yeah. Do you ever consider like kind of merging your niches as far as like, kind of working one within the other, or do you try to keep them kind of separate and kind of working them each separately?
Sometimes I like to merge them, but most of the time lately I've been keeping them separate. Like I'll rotate around each topic as much as I can. So it'll be well balanced.
In general, what's been the response so far? Are you seeing people having a preference for one form or the other?
That's a good question. It seems to be pretty equal on all topics.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to be something exciting. So if you guys are into fitness and entrepreneurship and personal development, you can let Britt know which one you're feeling the most. Sure. Appreciate that.
Let me know and I'll tailor it to you.
Right. Other just kind of thoughts or things that kind of come up with just getting yourself out there. I would also encourage just really quick, everyone. So even if you don't plan on using Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or any other platform, I think it's also good to just kind of claim the name just so other people don't, because it's really easy to create accounts and you want to have control over your identity as much as possible. And if you leave it open, someone else can take it, and you may not want that.
There's a lot of people that, I mean, there's a, I don't want to say it's a racket, but there is a market for people that kind of watch people as they're kind of coming up in either social media or just like even like small like celebrities and stuff like that, where they'll, you know, make a whole bunch of accounts that are kind of associated with that person's either name or business or something like that. And a lot of times it's not even necessarily directly what the business is. And so even if the person's like, I'm not going to use that, you probably don't want somebody running around making content and stuff like that is maybe related to or similar to your business, that, you know, they're not making anything that is kind of productive to you. So yeah, I would definitely advise that.
I mean, there's companies out there, their whole job is they just buy domains for like dirt cheap, just like really random names, on the hopes that like there's a company one day that needs that website. So they're like, oh, well, yeah, you can buy it from us for, you know, like $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah, my boss used to do that.
Stay out here. Wow. Well, I'm really hoping the
get that money.
I'm really hoping the domain Jeff Anderson sells fish sandwiches.
Actually, so speaking of, Jeff Anderson is actually it's a clothing line. That's the reason back when I had my personal page, it was Anderson Jeff, because Jeff Anderson was already taken. They were selling coats and crap.
Do they just have like the words Jeff Anderson? Because like
I literally think if you type in the name Jeff Anderson right now,
then you don't even have to own you could just sell those shirts, and then people would be like, oh, you can't sell our company shirts. Like, sir, this is my name. So
I mean, if Britt can make her marketing agency after a book, I guess I can do no.
Yes.
Other things about social media online presence that we've missed, things that you want to make sure we hit. All right, that's cool.
You're getting all the punchlines. Like we're only getting the buttons over here. Like you're getting all the punchlines, Britt. So I hope you and the people at home enjoy it, because I can't. I can only see the button being pushed.
We just know it's being pushed.
It's landing. Just know it's landing.
All right, take us. What's your last point for us? Let's get some bonus ones.
Numero tres is diversify your revenue streams. So
huge.
This would be with online courses. You can do self-publishing, you can do freelancing, you can do coaching, get certified for that, of course, but that's the revenue that you can go down, and consulting.
Wait, so you have to be like, you have to get certification for coaching?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta look into that. So I feel like there's so many I think online I don't want to say they're online coaches that aren't like coaches, right? They're like people that are like kind of selling a course and stuff like that. But they're really just like selling a course, and the course is, hey, get out there and do it. And then somebody pays them like $250 for them to say that. So I think that like when I think about like online coaches, there's like a lot of coaches online that I wouldn't really like put a lot of investment into. But then there's like a ton of them that I think there's like, I mean, there is this I don't want to say his name on, maybe I shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. But he's a writer who he does like these classes about like just like writing, and you know, when it comes to like narrative building and things like that. That's super cool. And I don't know. I mean, maybe he does have a certification. I guess I never really like thought about it. But like he actually like holds these courses at like convention centers and stuff like that. That's like seems like a pretty cool gig. But like just when we're talking about having like multiple streams of income, because he has a YouTube channel, and then he also does like these it's not like these huge seminars. He probably has, I mean it's probably huge in comparison, but like 150 200 people that show up to him. He probably holds them like 20 or 30 of those a year, but he does that, and then he actually publishes and stuff like that. So like, you know, just the idea of, you know, whatever you're doing, you could probably splinter that off into a couple different streams of revenue. I took the long way around for that story, but just I hope the people at home got it.
I think it brings up talking about like coaching and things like that, or teaching, or creating your own video courses. I think sometimes we get really hung up like, oh, I don't have an MFA, or like just again approaching from a poetry perspective, or oh, I haven't done this, oh, I haven't been published in this journal, oh, I haven't made a book. But I think again, we don't you just need to be one step ahead of someone. Sometimes people don't want the big expert. Sometimes people just want like someone that's relatable to them. Be like, oh, I know that you did this last week, or I know that you did this a year ago.
Yeah.
How'd you do it? You don't have to be super crazy. And I think another thing too with like video courses is it doesn't have to be this like massive endeavor. Like a 5-minute video can be a video course. Like it's not like it has to be an hour long. In fact, I forget who is it. Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn is a marketer talking about so he has all kinds of video courses, but specifically kind of targeting like podcasting and things like that. And the age we're in right now, like a lot of times people don't want to buy the video course that's like 500 hours long, comes with like 3 workbooks, and like a lot of times people don't want that because it's overwhelming. Sometimes people just want the 2-hour course. I can do that.
Yeah. And also I think people like the kind of the perspective of somebody, just like you said, that's like not that far beyond where they are, because they have a much fresher perspective as far as where you are when it comes to your craft or whatever you're doing. I think a lot of times if if you've been doing any craft for a really long amount of time, that just separates you from when you just started. So you might have somebody that's very like an amateur, and they're like, well, hey, I'm listening to this guy who clearly he's using jargon and he's talking in a way that I want to be able to relate to my craft or my like the knowledge base of my craft, but I'm not there yet. But this person who he just left where I was like a year ago, he understands, like he's not so far beyond me that he's using language that I wouldn't be able to relate to, but he's further than I am to where I have to like do a little bit of work to grasp where he's at. So yeah, I can definitely relate to being one of those people who likes learning from somebody who's just beyond where I'm at.
And also might be someone that because again, it's kind of what Bert was talking about earlier, just trying to develop your social media presence. I mean, so then like maybe on social media you connect with, you've actually engaged with someone multiple times, so you actually have a relationship with them, and maybe someone else has a bigger name and they have a course, but then that other person you're connecting with also has a course on the same topic. I wouldn't be surprised if just that emotional connection is a thing.
Yeah.
So, Britt, we don't have to necessarily like walk through all of those streams of income that you mentioned. There were many, but maybe if you could just kind of highlight 1 or 2 for us and talk about how would you kind of create a strategy around it.
So this is pretty new for me as a art kid.
Is there a particular strategy that you like the most, or is the one that you would want to try yourself?
I really don't have a strategy, honestly. Like I'm kind of just out
strategy
here.
is no strategy. We're just
I'm just out here.
What like so like there's so many different avenues, right? Like there's affiliate marketing, there's sponsorships, there's branding, there's brand deals, there's advertising, there's course creation, there's coaching, so if you had to pick one to kind of just start with, which one would you kind of prefer? Would you be most interested in trying to get started?
I think initially when I was starting out as a content creator, I was looking for a sponsorship. So that was like my biggest goal I was working towards, was to be sponsored by a brand or somebody, bigger than me, to give me some notoriety, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you know anyone that's been sponsored?
Not personally.
What would you say is a strategy? Like if someone's thinking about sponsorships, what do you think is what are the prerequisites before that even happens?
Definitely having a relationship with the person that you're trying to get sponsored by. So I wouldn't recommend cold DMing. That's just kind of desperate to me. I would so for example, I would just kind of follow them on whatever platform that I noticed them on, follow them, interact with them, engage, as we already talked about, engage with their content, be consistent, be in their face as much as possible. And then we can go start, having conversations and have like a formal discussion about sponsoring.
And I think when it comes to like kind of the synergy between the two, between the two entities, so anybody that would be sponsoring you, I think like looking for places where you can actually kind of converge and make sense to each other. I think a lot of people, they're reaching out to somebody or they're reaching out to brands just because they like the brand and they're like, I just really enjoy, Pepsi, but it's just like, what does Pepsi have to do with my poems? I'm like, probably nothing. And so or like work with like the work that I'm doing, like probably nothing. I know if bridging over to like some of the stuff that I do with photography, one of the partnerships that I was able to strike was with a private thrifter. And the kind of the primary reason for that is that they're a private thrifter who has a fairly big platform on Twitter, but they don't have as large of a platform on Instagram. And that's kind of their, that's where you would expect for a private thrifter to have a lot more of their traction. And I'm not sure. I'm by the time we ended up engaging, I don't really know the reason. Couldn't really assess the reason for that. I think maybe it's because their Twitter, like their personality on Twitter is a little bit different. And so it was a little bit more comical to a degree, whereas Instagram was just them kind of showcasing like the pieces. But naturally, as a photographer who publishes, these are things that their brand, it made more sense for their brand to be like, okay, well, we want our pieces to be out there in the world, not just to sell the pieces, but also to be like, okay, well, this is the person that is behind this brand is a wardrobe like designer, like they can design wardrobe, and like that was the angle that their page took in order to kind of help them build up some traction. And then naturally it helps us because now we have wardrobe for shoots, and there's a payment as well, so it kind of balances both of those out. But it was just one of the things I would just encourage is being able to like not just being somebody that I really like this brand, so I really want to work with it, but it's just really being able to find a common interest that will enable for the brand to do exactly what the brand is already doing and doing well, and for you to do exactly what you're doing and doing well, and then finding the spaces where those two overlap and where you can both execute.
Yeah, heavy on that common interest.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think another strategy too that can get overlooked, because I know sponsorships, especially in Asia, social media like sponsorships are huge if you're able to land them, but there's other strategies that can kind of employ similar ideas. I can speak to just for my teaching biz, like my teaching channel and things like that. We've had some like sponsored videos in the past, but another way that you can handle it too, if you're not able to get the sponsorship, is affiliate marketing, which can be small scale, probably isn't doing a whole lot, but talking about multiple income streams is one that can be, pretty profitable if you do it enough. And something that you can do is if there's a product you really like, you can reach out to the company and see it. They may already have one that's obvious on their website, or you can send them an email, be like, hey, do you guys have like an affiliate link? And what you can do, you can make, and this is maybe less about, hey, if it's just about, writing books, but maybe if you start making like a podcast, or if you start making a YouTube channel about writing or things like that, this is something I think, or like blogs or things like that, something where it starts getting, I think, a little bit more plausible. You can make some piece of content that's tailored like a sponsored video. So it's like they told you, hey, make the video, but instead it's an affiliate. So it's like you're going to highlight all the features you want or all the things you like and say, hey guys, if you like this, here's a link you can get. Sometimes they'll give you a discount. Sometimes they'll just be, hey, if you just click this link, I'll get like a 10% commission or a 20% commission. And this can get really especially lucrative if you land on something that's like subscription based, and something that every time the person that you bring on re-ups their subscriptions, like if it's monthly or yearly or whatever, what some companies do is they will basically give you a commission for each re-up. So it's like you're not just getting a one-time thing. You're getting, oh wow, this is happening every single month. I'm getting, my $10, my $20, depending on your product. So it's it's not something that like one affiliate link's not going to, you know, have a huge impact for you. But if it's something that like, hey, if you get some affiliates for, you know, 20, 30 different products going and you're consistently doing things around them, it can be something that, you know, brings you something on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look to other. I mean, I think like the way that we're talking about it right now is like really good, but also look at other creators and how they're kind of engaging with affiliate marketing. I don't, Britt, have you ever heard of RDC?
No.
No. So they're they're it's a YouTube channel. It's a group of guys actually, but they do like comedy skits, and but they also are in, like they do comedy skits that are around like somewhat around sports, like some like a little bit, but it's mostly around like gaming, cartoons, and like comic books and stuff like that, which is really cool. But they do, you know, live streams on Twitch and stuff like that. But one of their affiliates, I was actually just watching one of their streams a little bit earlier today. Is I mean, they have affiliates with like gaming systems. They actually have one. They just did one with like Disney for some Disney racing game or something of that nature. But it's cool because you get to see this integration of like two different brands that have kind of the same goal. You know, naturally they're going to be streaming themselves playing video games regardless. Like, so it's if it's whether it's this game or the next game or the next, like they're going to be filming themselves, like they're going to be streaming games. But then you have you know, a brand that really wants to push this game out to people who game, and it just so happens that the audience for RDC are people that game. And so now you have these, again, just like we were talking about before, just like these two entities that have a similar goal, and actually the way that one company operates is the exact thing that the other company needs, and then the same thing vice versa.
Yeah. Other general thoughts on content creation? Again, not just for us, but of course, if you're watching this live or watching this on the replay, you can let us know in the comments or in the chat. But other things that you would like us to hit on, Britt?
You guys hit everything for me.
I think, again, I want to make sure people are leaving with practical steps. I'm all about, you know, I think a lot of times, like you listen to podcasts, you see a video, and then you're like, okay, that sounded great, but I don't know what to do. I feel inspired, but what do I do with my inspiration? It's like, what do I do? So what I would encourage people to do is, first of all, decide on the income stream that you want to do. I want to run through a couple quick examples just to make sure, again, you're leaving with something. So again, affiliate marketing. So let's say that you're a writer and you want to do some things with affiliate marketing. So I can tell you about an approach that I have not been able to do yet, but something that I'm working towards is trying to find some services that writers would find helpful. You know, like there's Scrivener, there's what's that, like they have that, like, it's basically like a typewriter, but it's like a digital typewriter, and like it saves it.
Computer.
Thank you, Matthias. I think it's called like the Free Write or whatever. I don't know. You haven't seen this thing? All right, look this up. You guys can look this up after. It's basically like it looks kind of like it literally looks like a typewriter, but you can take it. It's supposed to be like distraction-free writing. That's the goal of 2023. But so anyways,
we're gonna eventually just devolve into like distraction. You just take like a pencil, right? And then take I don't know, I'm gonna say something crazy, a piece of paper, and then you're gonna sit down. Hear me out. I'm gonna get a little wild here. At a desk,
take your
right,
whack idea,
and you're gonna manually inscribe words. You're gonna go from your brain to your hands to this piece of paper. I'm just saying, just give it a shot.
Never.
You let me know how it works for you at home.
I am so sorry that my partner is so. But you know, okay, so like you can find writing products. I mean, honestly, you could find like there's some people doing like fountain pens. Like if you're into fountain pens and things like that, types of journals like Moleskine, stuff like that. Different apps, even like for instance like Grammarly and things like that. So trying to find some sort of product or service that in general is intended for people who are doing writing, and reaching out to them and seeing if they have affiliate links, and then making, you know, blog posts, video, podcast episodes, something related to that could help push an affiliate link. If that's not something you're interested in, and And feel free, guys, as I'm doing this, I'm just kind of rattling things off the top of my head. But if you think of something, feel free to interrupt me, or I'll give everyone a shot as well. Course creation. So if you want to make your own course or things like that. By the way, actually, I do want to just bring up something. Speaking of course creation, we're doing something. We're doing course creation, kind of. So we're having a webinar. It's actually almost full. Just a heads up. Yes, that's appropriate. So we're doing a webinar. You need to get in touch with me if you're interested, because I'm selecting people. Basically, every Wednesday, this is our new opportunity. It's a free webinar. It's called From Work to Workshop. So basically, it's kind of doing this whole thing. So we're talking about how do you take your writing and turn it into a workshop or a course, something like that. It can be an in-person course. It could be an online course. It could be a webinar, or however you want to do it. But how do you take your writing and actually turn it into something, that you can actually use to start developing your writing business? So some of the things we're talking about, we're going to talk about your topic. We're going to be talking about equipment you'll need. We'll talk about strategies you can use to promote that are proven effective. Talk about determining your venue, whether you want to be online. If you want to be online, what services to use. And again, we are doing this every single week. You can come multiple times. You can come once. But I am limiting participants to only 4. So there are only 4 participants. So if you're interested in something like this, you need to reach out to me so I can send you the pre-registration link. And then we'll make the determination. I encourage you to do that soon, because our first one is going to be next week. So our first one is going to be on the 27th, 9 p.m. New York. And we already have at least 4 people who have sent me stuff. So if you're trying to get a seat, now is the time to do that, because we will be making the selections soon. But this goes back to our concept of course creation. So if you want to be course creation, this is something you want to think about. Where are you doing your course? Are you leading it? Do you want someone else to lead it? Are you recording it? Or are you not recording it? Like, these are all different things to be thinking about. Other aspects in terms of kind of just diversification, passive streams that you guys wanted to explore really quick?
I mean, I think the only thing that I would maybe add on is, I think a lot of times scheduling this kind of stuff can be really, really difficult, or it can be a little bit harder, especially if you are depending on like kind of what you do throughout the day and things like that. So I mean, one of the things that I would say is just really being able to segment what you're able to do and prioritize like with your craft throughout the day. I know for me personally, if I'm not reminded, hey, well, kind of devote this time to the actual marketing portion, or devote this time to kind of either creating like flyers or creating deals, things that are around the business, I might only focus on, creating, right? And, the engine that's going to be able to push you to being able to create more, your talent, absolutely. But, also these other aspects of, just kind of creating multiple streams of income so that, you can eat off of your art and things like that. Like those are the engines that are going to really kind of push you in those spaces. So yeah, just like, scheduling in some clear and dedicated time to all of this activity. So don't just push yourself in the creator aspect, push yourself in the business aspect.
Yeah, you don't have to do everything all at once too, by the way. Just 1% every day.
Yeah. That's actually really good too, because I think that aspect can also be really overwhelming as well, because I think you're always thinking of all the things that you have to do right now in order to get to that next level. So you're like, man, I want to have 5,000 followers on this platform, or I want to have like this kind of engagement, and you're thinking about that right now, as opposed to, man, how do you just get 100 more people, right? Or how do you get 10 more people? How do you get 10 people that are really engaged with your work, that are really like, kind of interacting with your work? And then you kind of, what do people say? Like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I don't know if that's like, that doesn't seem universal.
Like that.
Maybe what I said was not universal. Maybe I dreamt that.
Britt seems
maybe I dreamt that. But either way, but it's just the idea that, a lot of times we're thinking that we need to have it right now, which is maybe that's a good engine to have. You should have that kind of motor that says, hey, I want to really push myself. But then also it's going to get overwhelming if you're thinking that, hey, I have, you know, this kind of engagement and I want to get to the point where I have, let's say, like, I want to get to the point where I can have and sustain having like merchandise. Oh, that's not going to happen overnight. That's going to happen with a lot of hard work. So not only just a lot of hard work, but a lot of planning. So what's the next step in your plan? We're not talking about, oh, you know, tomorrow you want to have built this house. No, maybe tomorrow you would have bought a couple pieces of supplies, or maybe tomorrow you have started on kind of drawing up what the house is going to look like. But you have to actually have those steps in place and actually be able to acknowledge those steps.
Or maybe tomorrow you're just picking colors for the house, something that small. It's not insignificant by any means, like, because all of these small choices stack up to like one huge reward. So just keep that in mind.
Or maybe tomorrow we have headphones like Brit, like just,
or you can have pink headphones.
we can have
small steps.
I'm sorry. We can't just get to that level.
Oh my God. And that's speaking of scheduling, I think something that's really helpful too from a promotion standpoint is trying to have something that's actually recurring weekly that brings people to you. So this actually ties into another thing that we're doing. So one of the things that we're doing again was the webinar. This is something that I'm doing to try to bring people to me, you know, every week. We're trying to also give value. We're not just doing, one thing we always have to keep in mind is that we're not doing this stuff for us. Because like if it's doing it for me, I might not want to do this all the time. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I want to spend time with my family and stuff like that. But I'm doing it because I want to also help people. You know what I mean? So I think because people know when that's not the case. When you're just trying to get their money, they know that. You know, so it's not about the money is a byproduct. The money comes when you are able to help people grow and achieve the things that they're looking for, you know. So that's one of the things that we're doing again is like, for instance, the webinar, just to try to show people that, hey, again, your writing can take you places if you want it to. Another thing that we're doing, and this is just trying to give some examples of things maybe you can think about after this session, or maybe right now you can pause and be like, okay, what's something I can do that I can commit to every week? Or if I can't do it every week, can I do it every 2 weeks? Or if I can't do it every 2 weeks, can I do it once a month? If I can't do it once a month, can I do it quarterly? What's something that you could organize that brings people to you to talk about something that you're interested in, that you want to help people with? Another thing that we're doing, just highlight this. So this is something we're doing called Pep and Poets, which is on first Sundays, so 2 to 3 p.m. We're meeting at a local pizza shop, and we're just talking poetry. Because one of the things, just to kind of, I want to explain the story so that way you can start thinking about an event that you can do and the story behind that. So one of the reasons why we're doing this, so again on first Sundays, is one of the things I noticed in Columbus is that, you know, there's open mics, there's shows, there's features, but there's not really a space where you can go and just kind of talk about, hey, I got rejected. I sent 10 poems and all 10 got rejected. In fact, 11 got rejected. They just sent me an email, said, don't send here. It was really bad. Or like, hey, I have a poetry question. Or like, hey, I'm trying to find a mentor. Or I read this really cool poem. I just want someone to talk to it. So like, we just don't have that space right now. So this is my attempt to kind of fill that gap. So it's just a chance. We're not doing, you know, if people want to read a poem when they're there, maybe. Oh, okay, we'll see what happens. It's organic, but that's
everybody's
not
like, that's why it was rejected. Now I know, because it's horrible. It's some pizza. We're
just getting together to talk things related to poetry and things like that, you know. So again, I would throw that back onto you. Is what is something that you could organize to start building your own community? One quick note, another thing too, is that something I think is effective with these sorts of things is also kind of limiting it. So for instance, this Pep and poets, it's already full. We're doing 6 people. The webinar, again, we already have like 4 people that have submitted stuff. More people can submit. We haven't selected yet. But just when you keep things really open, in some ways that disincentivizes people to commit. But if you're like, I mean, use the Apple strategy. What does Apple do every time they release a product? They say, oh, we will not be able to meet demand. We won't be able to meet demand, so trying to limit things adds a note of urgency. We can talk about marketing strategies in another podcast episode, but my big thing for you right now is just trying to think of what can I do to bring people together in a common interest that I want to help people in. That was a lot. I'm really sorry. Final thoughts on this or any of our 3 points?
Anything?
Brett, I have a question
Yeah.
for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, here.
Question.
Oh yeah, I forgot the question. Okay.
It's
so,
official now.
Let's say my niche was a very concentrated contingent of people that believed that Scar was right in The Lion King. How would I go about really pushing myself into that niche?
First of all, by saying Scar was right.
I just have to say that as much times as possible.
Yeah.
Because I do, to be clear.
He's already there.
I'm in the
pretty
club.
sure. Yeah. They probably got forums for all that type of stuff too.
No, there's a FBI watch list for that. They're just like, you think Scar's right?
Oh my god.
We'll find you. We'll find him. This guy's gonna be trouble. But yeah, okay. So so here's something that's interesting, and I feel like it sometimes it seems like a joke, but then sometimes it feels real because after I'll like do a poem, right? And then after you do a poem, like the comments that people give you after, like that's like immediate feedback because that's as close to as genuine a feedback as you can really get because it's not them in the audience clapping, it's them actually kind of approaching you and kind of talking to you. And I think that's like a lot of times where I get my notes. That's where I'm like, oh, like this is what people really think of the poem itself. And so like let's say I'll do like again I do a poem about Scar being right in The Lion King. It's like afterwards then you'll see people kind of come up and they'll be like, I never thought about it that way, but I mean when you do it's like, yeah, like I guess Scar might have been right. And then or you'll get some people that are like, oh man, I don't agree with that, and then I'll just like debate them for hours of my life after that. But yeah, which is just to say that I think that a really cool thing when it comes to feedback is like kind of the unexpected feedback, and really what I would say is just kind of really genuinely processing feedback, because I think a lot of times, regardless of what comes back to you, people kind of block it out and they're like, I'm already decided on what I'm kind of formulating or what I'm doing. But I think that the fact that people typically, after I get done doing that poem, people have an opinion on it. They either like hate the poem, they're like, well, not I don't want to say hate the poem, but they like the poem because they like that they can argue against the poem, or they like the poem because they're like, man, I never really thought about it because, if you've watched The Lion King, who would think Scar was the good guy? But I'm like, well, I want to be clear, but I don't think Scar was a good guy, but I don't think he was the bad guy. But that's just, I'll let that sit with your conscience. Just, he wasn't okay. I'm not gonna get into it, but it's just to say that, yeah, I think feedback in those spaces are really valuable, and I think that creators should do what they can to source out that feedback and not kind of run from it.
Yeah, that's
and also watch Lion King and realize I'm right.
I'm gonna be thinking about this before I go to bed tonight.
You should. If you if you really think about Lion King, just really think about it. Like, I'm not saying Scar was a good guy, but Mufasa challenged him first. So
I mean, low key.
If at that point in the first scene of the movie, and the first scene when Scar and Mufasa are in the same scene, Mufasa like runs and he's like in Scar's face and he's like, "Is that a challenge?" And then like the thing is, Scar tells him, he said, as far as like, the like strength is gone, like you have the line, like brute strength, you have the lion's share. But as far as as far as brains go, I have the lion's share. But as far as brute strength, I'm at the shallow end of the dream pool or something of the gene pool. So I'm like, he tells him like, yeah, I'm smarter than you. You might be stronger, but like you just challenged me to a fight. If they would have fought right then it's like everybody would have been fine with Mufasa like beating him. But like just because Scar outsmarted him, everybody's like, oh no, Scar is horrible. I'm like, ah. And also, when the Pride Lands dried up, that was Mufasa's fault. He was in the clouds. Like he showed it at the end. He like came through the clouds and it started raining again. I'm like, that's not Scar's fault. That's Mufasa's fault. And I know that this podcast was not supposed to be about about all the ways.
He is right though.
Mufasa was willing to let the entire Pride Lands die just to make sure his son gets like. That's not. Is that nepotism?
Wouldn't you do the same?
Or no? I'm just saying. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I'll let you. We'll have our next podcast. It's gonna only be about Scar being right, and then we're gonna invite you back.
Is not only gonna be about
for 5 hours. We're just gonna talk about the hero that is Scar.
Scar was right.
The Scar years.
Other social media things, business things, writing things. Brits, I'm gonna pass you the microphone.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Just make sure you guys are showing up as much as possible, especially when it comes to writing. It's good to put yourself out there and to put your face out there and make sure your voice is heard. Those are key things to kind of gaining visibility and gaining traction online, especially on social media. It's about being social. So socialize as much as possible, engage. I keep saying the word engage. It's like a buzzword, but that's pretty much what it boils down to.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
How can we, so we see that's what is it? Threads? That's your Threads handle. Or do you have any other handles we should tap in with?
I have an Instagram at the same username, and that's pretty much it. I was using TikTok, but now I kind of fell off, so you don't have to find me on there.
Got you. Okay. Can we also find you No Mud No Lotus? Or not yet?
Not yet.
But coming.
It's coming.
It's
hopefully.
Coming. Get excited. Yes. Fingers crossed. All right. We have one final section of the show. Britt, are you good, or did you want to hang with us, or did you want to be like, I am out because I'm tired because of all this Scar talk?
I do have to walk my dog. So.
Okay. What kind of dog do you have?
I have an Australian Shepherd lab mix. Her name is Blue.
We have I never even knew what an Australian Shepherd was, but we have a tiny Australian Shepherd Chihuahua mix.
Oh my God, that sounds so cute.
He's very small and very scared.
I have an American Bully, so.
Your wife is not. Oh my God,
she's not that bad.
Ajane, he's not. He's not talking about. Oh my God.
No, but her name is Secret.
Oh.
Yeah,
she's very sweet. She's very big, but she's very sweet.
Yeah, she's huge. She thinks she's a lap dog. She is fast.
Yeah, cool.
They always do.
We thank Britt for joining us today. Find her again. Tirade. Enjoy your walk with your dog.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. You take care, Britt. Thanks for being with
Bye.
us. We appreciate you. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
That leaves us then to this. Yeah, I could. Oh, because it was through the thing. All right. So, Matthias, you gave us a prompt. What?
That was spooky. That's spooky.
Oh, but that's like all right. So, Matthias, you gave us a prompt recently, and your prompt was. Do you remember what the actual wording of the prompt was?
I could find out right now. Wait, I gave the last prompt?
You did. You texted it to me. Okay, he's gonna be digging that up.
Oh, wait.
Wait, right there. You hid your dearest. Okay, so the prompt was you hid your dearest treasure
Yeah.
somewhere, and what's the rest?
Yeah, you hid your dearest treasure somewhere, and you're writing a letter to someone you love, telling them how to find it.
Okay.
Now, here, okay, I'll be transparent with you, the audience. So
Someone
I had to work on this while I was at work. So I actually wrote it in my notebook at my desk.
So you got paid to write today.
Don't tell my job. But unfortunately, my notebook is, and I can see it in my, I can see it in my head. It is right. It is literally on my work laptop.
Some background music for this story. Yeah.
No, that was it. That story's over.
Oh, this.
That story's over. But I'm gonna share it on Threads, or maybe I'll share it like next week. But I'm gonna share it with you guys because I want you guys to. Yeah, but I heard you guys had some. Did you write it?
I did write it. Yes,
you did write it. Look at it. We switched because like before when Jeff made the prompt, Jeff didn't write the. But then when Jeff when I make the prompt, then Jeff writes. Look at the switch you got.
Some other people sent us some answers too. I will show mine. But I do want to highlight some people that sent in some prompts, which we appreciate. Give me 1 second. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is very small. Okay. Did you want to read the first one or read the second one?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So this is from Zella.Spark. Yeah,
they're doing lots of interesting experiments also with AI generate art and things like that. So if you're into that, take a look at their account on Threads.
Remember that gift you shared in the wild woods of childhood. It was this je ne sais quoi, unnameable, intangible, incredible. Now it's unquestionably missing, lost in a maze of misdirections and mistakes, dropped along the way a long time ago. Myopic, my mindset. Hedges let grown into walls of narrow optics, dizzying turns, tangled paths, spinning me in cycles I can't even see. If you're out there, still in the wind, send a flare for me. Light a beacon to interrupt my night sky and reignite my spark.
Yes.
That was a very fluent reading. That was a very, I don't know, this
yes, you did
very
good.
Morgan Freeman-esque. You know,
I really
appreciate it.
I think there's lots of elements of the poem that lend well to acoustics, like the unnameable, intangible, incredible, like a lot of the repetitions there. There were other parts as well that, like for instance, myopic, my mindset. Like there's a lot of kind of the repetition of the sounds, which I think really work well. In addition to some kind of surreal images. Like the hedges grown into the walls.
Yeah, I like the kind of the turn for me kind of in the last stanza where like if you're out there, like now we're kind of redirecting the focus.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a lot of big shift.
Yeah.
And also the reliance on light. It's interesting too because if you're out there is kind of implying uncertainty.
Yeah.
But the reliance on the light images, light often associated with knowledge. So you kind of this balance between like uncertainty, knowledge, kind of and what's the interruption. But that was our first one. Thank you to Zella. Okay. Then we have Katie Talks. Send us this one, Resting Place. And it's a sonnet, I think, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Sonnet. It looks like a sonnet. Has a heroic couplet at the end. It has rhymes, but I'm really interested in the rhyme scheme because it's not Shakespearean.
Spoiler alert.
It's not Spencerian, and it's not what's the other one? Petrarchan. So the rhyme scheme's kind of thrown because it's like, so you have rests, and then you have crest. Down here, you have light.
Are you gonna read it?
I am gonna read it, but I'm just gonna I was tracking because I'm confused about the scheme.
But you gotta read it so that people are like,
okay,
oh yeah.
all right. Anyways, all right. So this poem is called "Resting Place." To find thy haven where my spirit rests, begin thy journey at dawn's first light. where the forest meets the meandering stream. Follow its currents to where waters fall. Beyond the thicket, where shadows grow long and birds serenade with bright melodies, a meadow stretches, kissed by golden rays, its beauty hidden from the world's eyes. To the west, where the old oak tree stands tall with limbs outstretched, as if it's beckoning to turn your gaze to the hilltop's crest. There, my dear, you shall find nature's prime. In this refuge, my heart has found its place, a world apart from life's unyielding pace. So we got the romantic poem, bringing that nature imagery with
We need
structure.
a clap. Well, we need a. What is it called? We need a.
Yeah, I don't have a finger snap, but I do have a ta-da.
Ta-da!
Thanks, Gabe, for sending this. Let me know what the rhyme scheme is. 'Cause it's there, but I don't know what. I'm
It's a little off
very
kilter,
intrigued.
yeah.
I think I have. This was our last one.
Do you want me to read it?
Please.
Okay, so anybody poet.
I think it's a no, but or maybe it is a no, but
Wait, yeah.
that's no, but maybe it is.
No,
Maybe it is.
that's what I mean. That's just. I mean,
It's
it's like
both.
their creative rendering.
Anyways,
Yeah, maybe. No. Yeah, I think it is a nobody poet.
no, but I don't.
I don't know. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, whoever you are out there, thanks for sending this in. The treasure is in the field, back behind the shed, buried neath. Oh my gosh, buried next to dear old Uncle Ted. Are we accomplices now?
By reading, does
It's-
reading make you an accomplice?
I'm pretty sure because now I know. Now I know where the treasure is.
There's all kinds of legal implications. Of this.
Now I know where the treasure is. Now I'm gonna find it. It belongs to me.
All right, thank you to a nobody poet. I like anybody poet, but it could also be that. It's like changes my mind. My mind is just blown. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's fair.
All right. I will load up mine. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Our screen may freeze momentarily. My apologies if that happens. This document is very big.
What did we just see?
I don't think it froze yet.
Just in case.
I mentioned earlier I read a lot of dad poems. So we got another dad poem. This there. All right. I'm going to share my screen. And then we want to highlight just some quick announcements and things like that before we let it go. But we will share. It'll look like this. All right. Let's zoom in a bit because this is kind of small. All right. So again, our prompt is you had your dearest treasure somewhere and you're writing. You love telling them how to find it.
Oh, yeah.
This is love letter to my son's ears. Our neighbor had a lightning bolt shoot up just a footstep away from his shoelaces. But what really got him was the detonation of thunder, the way a lion's throat echoes in a zebra ear, or any prey as a fang slips in. In case what I'm saying does not make sense, here is a reminder. Even a tomato vine screams until water runs out. So often, noise leads to alarm. If I listen to my footsteps down the stairs, I can tell how grateful I am today. Even my body is sounding out vowels if I care to pay attention, but I would rather not hear stones ripple the stream until the blood chokes or copper plaque my brain. I am content the greatest sound in the universe is not my own, but the tickles of your breath against my chest hair, timed to my clockwork, my hands warm on your back so briefly. That's my poem.
Shout out to Jeff Anderson for that poem, commonly known as Jeff Anderson's T-shirts. But no, that was really good.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I like having things that are enjoyable. We have a lot of things happening, so I just kind of wrap up some announcements. Some of these were already mentioned during the stream, which kind of actually came up very organically, very naturally. They fit in with what we were discussing, which is great. So again, if you're located in Columbus, we have something on first Sundays called Pep and Poets. We limit it, but basically what we do is a small group, kind of just conversation about poetry things, craft, acceptances, reductions, publishing, books, things we've read, anything kind of with regards to poetry, and just free pizza. Well, it's not for me. I'm not paying. I'm buying people pizza.
But for you, as far as you can tell, it's free pizza.
But for everyone, yeah, for everyone else listening to this, it's free pizza for you. If you're interested in this sounds cool to you, and you want to join us in a future edition, you do need to join. This is a Facebook group, so you do need to join the Pep and Poets Facebook group. You can send me a message. You can find me on Threads, and I'll be happy to send you the link. So that way you will have a chance to join us next time. Also, starting next week, we are launching our new webinar series. So every single Wednesday from 9 to 9:30 p.m., we are hosting From Work to Workshops, where we just kind of talk about strategies for taking your writing and your work and making it into an actual course or webinar or video course, however you want it to be. So that is something that's happening every Wednesday. You do need to pre-register, and from the pre-registrations, we are selecting 4 people to join me currently. And last thing that's happening. Oh, this is like big news for I should play that at the beginning. Our collective residency. So the residency is still taking applications. Residency, in case you don't know, we're doing a residency in Ohio from Friday, December 8th through December 10th. And in addition to that, on Saturday, you will get a featured reading, which will be recorded. So that's also very exciting. And yeah, and one of the 2 poets who are accepted, so we're taking 2 women identifying poets. One poet will also receive a $200 stipend. Yeah. So lots of things. You can find more information about that if you go search for diversespoetry.com and click on collective.
You should do that. You should absolutely do that. It's a really good opportunity.
You should do that.
All of them are really good opportunities. All the things that we're doing.
You should
really
good.
You should be there, especially the pizza.
Yeah.
It's free pizza.
It's free pizza, except for me.
Yeah, except for Jeff. Everybody else. It's free pizza.
Get you a free slice on the house. Oh, you did a poetry. You had a poetry feature.
I did have a poetry feature. So yeah, me and my okay, so you guys, if you were listening, was it 2 streams ago, or 2 podcasts ago, we announced that we were going to be. We're booked to do this, and we'll probably do some events in the future. But we're booked to do this event together, and then Jeff, shout out to Jeff's uncle, 100 years, yeah, bang, bang. That's worthy. That is worthy. That's a full century. Okay. So that's great stuff. But so while Jeff was tending to the family and celebrating that incredible milestone, I was here holding the fort down for Diverses at Hot Sauce Poetry.
Did you mention us? You didn't mention us.
I did. I wore our shirt. I wore the shirt. There's like pictures and stuff like that. So it's cool. So but yeah, so I did this event and actually took with me in Jeff Stead this kind of little known poet,
American Bully.
She actually just so happens to be my roommate, and legal roommate, legally binding roommate. We had this little kind of get together a couple years ago, December 6th.
They got dressed up.
Where we kind of got dressed up, did a thing. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but
I told a great joke.
Jeff told an amazing joke at this little shindig. But yeah, it was really, really cool. So, but yeah, we performed, me and my wife. Shout out to Ajane, clap it up for stepping in and really killing the show. So but we performed that feature. It was a great time. Got the word out about Diverses to a couple new people, and they said they wanted us to come back sometime.
Okay. That's a
So
good sign.
maybe that'll be kind of an open door to some other stuff
Okay.
too.
Good.
Yeah, it's a good
Glad to hear
time.
that. All right. I'm tired.
I'm Matt. So
On that note, we will see you guys back. So again, next Tuesday we'll be back to Versus Live. Wednesday we have the webinar. And coming up again, first Sunday in October, we have Pepe Pizza. Get your applications in for the residency. You're a women identifying put. And otherwise, we will see you guys later. Have a good day. Take care.
Good night.